So there was a big exit at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia where over 100 people walked out on the convention due to the email scandal, which suggests that the Democratic leadership, party bosses, and super elites were completely defying the will of the people or attempting to thwart their will. So that was interesting. It was interesting to see. Everyone thought that the Republican convention was going to be the convention of controversy and strife, and really, when you look at the scope of what happened there, I mean, the most you had was one candidate, former candidate, didn't endorse Donald Trump, but you didn't have hundreds of people, or at least 100 people, get up and leave. You didn't have massive protests, and they actually, I guess they ran the numbers, and all of the protests at the Republican convention against Donald Trump added up to actually a smaller group of people than what you have with Bernie supporters outside of the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. I'm not surprised it's a mess in Philadelphia because Philadelphia is a messy city. It's a
but it's an honest city.
Maybe they're fooling themselves every year when they think that they can win the cup.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna give you that one. That's fine. But in a way, in terms of the socioeconomic disparity, there's so much, like, you have so many different types of people who have enough in common in that place to share a certain kind of belief. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
The things that they have to bond over are more about survival than they are about greed.
Yes.
In a way.
Yeah,
and
I could see
so thinking that they have some say is because that's the only way that they understand to live.
Yeah, and really, this is a shining example. Say what you want about Trump, and I'm not a Trump fan. I'm not supporting him, but he won. He wasn't, endorsed by party elites or anything else. He beat the system. The Democrats, you have a situation where they're literally trying to rig the system. Well, we talked last week about a situation with the Republican Party in Westmoreland County where the party bosses tried to rig a sheriff's race, even though they don't endorse. Oh, they never endorse, but, they bully and they harass people to get what they want.
Right.
So, very similar. But this kind of crap, I mean, honestly, I think this email scandal, the new email scandal, the Democrats have so many email scandals now going around. I think this one could really put a nail in her chances of winning the presidency because people, Bernie, I think Bernie people would have come around. Not now. Not now. In fact, here at the convention, this is interesting. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the chairman, she was booed off the stage. We got a little clip of that. Let's see if we can play this.
Boo!
Oh, it's
there's the clip
the
of booing.
And she thanked me for my service. We had a wonderful conversation. She asked me, and I committed to her that I would.
Yeah, she got a job with Hillary after she rigged the election for her.
Is that actually true? I feel like I snoped that, and it was partial.
Oh no, she's going to be with her
Exactly how
campaign.
Hold on. Let's check that
there you
out
go.
for sure.
She's got a job. I mean, that was said by both parties. She actually said in her speech, her resignation speech, that she was going to be working with the Clinton campaign as a delegate in her home state and nationwide. And then I believe I saw some language coming from the Clinton campaign as well to that effect. But it's crazy. It's just crazy to see. I mean, I don't. It's interesting to see someone boot off a stage multiple times at their own convention. And I saw some interesting videos and some interesting footage of the rallies outside. They actually erected a wall to try to keep protesters away from the Wells Fargo Center, and you've got people trying to...
Okay, well, erecting a wall is not going to help anybody's case on the Democratic
side. No. It's kind of feeding into the hand of the enemy for them. But
what happened to, like, I'm going to make the biggest finger paint to protest this? What? Why are we doing that? Let's go back to, like, the fun stuff.
Let's go back to the fun stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Honestly, I'm enjoying it. I would like to see the establishment crumble on both sides. I don't necessarily want a Trump candidate, but I would like to get some sort of honesty in politics. And I'm arguing with somebody who, the other day online, he's involved in politics on a local level out in Westmoreland County, and he said, well, why would the Democrats want, why would the party leadership want somebody who's an independent, who's not even a Democrat, to win the nomination? And I said, okay, but he had a large portion of the Democrat voters, and they make up the Democratic Party too. The Democratic Party isn't made up of super elites and party bosses. It's made up of the collective of voting membership. So, yeah, they're part of the party too. It's not an oligarchy. It's supposed to be a democratic process.
Right. Exactly.
And if the people in that party want this independent to represent them, well, they make up the voting membership. They are the ones who should be driving the direction of the party. They're the ones who vote in the leadership, such as Miss Wasserman Schultz. So really, the power should be in their hands, not a few elite, top, high-end, super elite, big shot establishment cronies.
Right. Right.
I mean,
but at some point you're always going to, like, the more leaders that you elect, the more power that they think they're, power corrupts, absolutely.
Yes.
Right? So, honestly, wiping the whole system and going to every 2 years, you have to serve on Congress, like, jury duty.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
You are dedicated every 2 years to this law. Figure out how it affects everybody around you. And I think that would change the mind, like, everybody
might,
has...
But, you walk around, you talk to people. Do you really want half the people that you interact with making any kind of decision that could affect your life at all?
But if you have it as a matter of essentially crowdsourcing, right? The majority is going to come up with the right answer at least 81% of the time.
I don't know.
No, it's...
the majority elected these people, so, you
no,
gotta
that's
consider
true.
that.
But if, in terms of, like, multiple choice answer question, if you crowdsource it, or things like Linux, for instance, the more people who are adding to create this hole that everybody else can use to create even more. I was going somewhere with that. I had a point. Let's go back 2 thoughts.
You were talking about the collective with Linux and how people are working collaboratively and it creates a better product. And...
Right. So if everybody is forced, you have to learn exactly how this process works, to learn exactly how this rule works, so that the majority has the knowledge to continue on with it. I think that we would see a different lifestyle entirely.
Possibly, but I don't know, there's a lot of dumb people in the world. You walk through the streets, you see the way people drive, or people, like, literally wander and get lost in the middle of the street, and it's like, do you really want that person who somehow got lost?
Everybody comes from some point of logic. Like, that's why we are humans, is we come from a logical base. Even if the very first idea is not... I believe that there is a Tyrannosaurus Rex in the corner of this room. I'm going to react like there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex in the corner of this room. And I'm going to do everything I can to protect myself.
You're the kind of person who gets lost in the middle of the street, aren't you?
What I'm
if
trying...
If you think there's a...
That's what I'm saying, though, is you can have compassion for the people who are lost in the middle of the street, because some people will lock their keys in their car and have a really bad day.
But I don't just, like, walk into the street and kind of, like, look around like, oh?
No, but you've already done the dumb thing, and you punished yourself by letting yourself sleep outside. I've broken into my own house before.
Yeah, I didn't want to damage the property.
Yeah, see, that's on you. That's
on me.
Your decision.
I stand by my decision.
But
it was a nice warm night, actually. If I just would have had a pillow, I would have actually preferred to sleep outside. It was nice out.
But my point is, everybody gets themselves into situations where they could have done something better and made a better decision, and then they didn't. And then maybe they're wandering in the middle of the street or sleeping on their porches.
I can understand wandering in the middle of the street, but I'm talking about actually getting lost, like you've forgot you were in the middle of the street. Like you know what I mean. You see the crazy lady, she's kind of like
Right,
has
and
no
that,
clue
I'm
where
just
she's
saying,
going.
if you had compassion for the crazy lady,
I
and
have compassion
understood-
for her. I just don't want her making any life decisions on my behalf.
But I think that there's something to what she knows, and I think
Well,
when
we-
you get to the inside of that,
Well, maybe she could be in charge of better street sign management or something, so she doesn't get so lost that she
Right.
doesn't know she's in the middle of a street with driving cars coming at her.
necessity is the mother of invention. That's what I'm telling you. This is how we
Okay.
get flying cars.
That's how we get
Maybe
flying
she
cars.
invents flying cars so
She's
that
not
she can
inventing flying
wander in the
cars.
middle of the street. She might.
She doesn't even know she's in the middle of the street. She's gotten lost.
Yeah. So that doesn't mean that she can't. She doesn't have like a beautiful mind.
She may have a beautiful mind, but I don't know if it's together enough to invent a flying car. Because it's not together enough to know that she left the sidewalk. Just saying.
But she could. Maybe she does know. Maybe she did know she left the sidewalk, and now it's her dream to forever leave the sidewalk, and she's gonna invent the flying car.
And she's the reason why we have open streets, and she's the reason why I had a hard time getting around Lawrenceville last month.
Maybe she's always in a party that's always happening in the middle of the street.
Maybe.
Maybe that's the point of view she's always coming from, and she just wants everybody to be happy, love each other.
But she's making people like me angry whenever you're like driving and you're like, what is the hell is this
but
crazy
you
lady?
made that decision to be angry. That's again on you. It's a very
No,
Buddhist
it's-
thing. You
it's-
take responsibility for your own decisions and your own actions and your own feelings.
But that won't work both ways if she wanders in the middle of the street and I just happily keep
you
going.
could have compassion
that would
for
be
her.
that would still be my responsibility.
It would be your responsibility.
So when does it become her responsibility to make sure that she's on the sidewalk where she's supposed to be?
Well, I think once you have somebody who's taking care of her, that would probably help things. She's probably wandering in the middle of the street because her nurse isn't there. Probably because she doesn't have great health insurance, which probably starts with electing the right officials so that we don't have this problem. And, you know.
Maybe we can get actual healthcare reform instead of just giving the insurance companies complete dominion over our lives.
Exactly. That
Yes.
is a fantastic way to put that. Way to pick up.
Yes.
That was awesome.
So, moving into theater, we've talked a little bit about the DNC because we're running behind, but that's okay because it's been fun.
Yes.
So, you just came off of a great production at Belvedere's, which I
Yes.
enjoyed, and it was 12th Midnight,
Twelfth-
Midsummer Nights.
There you go.
Yes.
12th
Tongue-tied.
Midsummer Night's Tempest.
Yes, and it was great, and I really enjoyed the performance, and I loved the way that you did the performance where people were sitting. You brought it to them instead of just watching something on a stage far away. You were actively, as an audience member, involved in the production to a point, which was very cool.
That's very, very much a thing that I love.
Mhm.
As I said a little bit earlier, I really like doing shows in alternative spaces. And using what's in front of you and the gravity of the words and getting through the fourth wall.
Mm-hmm.
And where you are really truly a part of it, and that's what I wanted you to feel. So under the exact same lights, sitting at the same bar that the actors are while they're going through their lives makes you sort of gives you a little voyeuristic, like, oh, I know what you're up to.
Yes, and it was great because they literally did. You're sitting at the bar, they come up and get a drink at the bar while you're sitting there. It was very interactive, and the play was to raise awareness to different types of sexualities, whether it be homosexuality or trans.
Well, in a way, it raised the charity that everything went to was the out of work staff of Pulse in Orlando, and I chose that because in the concept of 12th Midsummer Night's Tempest, Antonio and Sebastian, who are characters that Shakespeare has written throughout his career, and there's some precedent for Antonio being homosexual, and also you have of the three plays that I chose, 12th Night is Viola is interesting to play because she is a female who dresses up as a man so that she can go through this town unharmed.
Okay.
And she becomes the I don't remember the word, but assistant, let's say, of Count Orsino. And he goes to his love, Olivia, and says his feelings, and Olivia falls for Viola, who Olivia thinks is a man.
Okay.
But Viola is returning the feelings, knowing full well that she is not a man.
Mm-hmm.
So we know, like, this has always been here, is where eventually this whole rant is going. Is in Shakespeare, he doesn't care about sexuality or gender or sex or whatever. It's love is love, and it's always existed continuously throughout his career, even over the 10-year gap. And that is what I wanted to bring to the forefront, is that it, not that I'm here to change anyone's mind, that I'm saying, like, we're queer and we're here, rah! But no, we've always been here. We're just gonna go.
And I think that's a better approach, to be honest, because you see things like, especially some things that happen out in California, where, you know, like one example was you know, a couple people, men dressed up as nuns, and started making out in front of a church. So that's not gonna bridge any gap between, you know, the religious right or people who are, you know, maybe not even hateful, but you know,
I
even
think I get the
confused.
statement. I get the statement. I think there's a better way to do the statement.
Because you're just going to push people away at that point. I mean, if somebody's already firm in their beliefs, something like that's just going to further that divide.
I think you can push. I'm not against pushing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it doesn't so much further the divide as it does open the walls of the boxes that contain us.
Mm-hmm.
And once we see the similarities in everything, we can really start to understand each other. And in a way, I can understand in my little Yoko Ono mind that how I could be just like you. People have done this all the time. This is part of the history that exists here too, is I'm dressed up like this. This is where we hid. This is who we are. This is what we had to do, and now it's out in the open. I don't necessarily have a problem with that understanding.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a matter of, I'm going to do this because I'm going to do this, well then, how are you helping?
Yeah.
I think if it was there to help, and in my Yoko mind, I can understand how it would help. But in that, you have to take the considerations of the message that you're sending.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I look at it from the opposite point of view, and I'm somebody who comes from a religious background, and it's almost it comes across as mocking.
Sure.
And I think that isn't going to. You're not going to make anybody. You're not going to open anyone's mind by insulting them. And I guess that's not in that way, not in a personal way like that. I think you're going to.
You're not going to open anyone's mind by insulting them. What you are going to do is, like I said, you're going to stretch out the edges of the fringe where we are. I mean, we couldn't be where we are right now if it wasn't for gay people holding hands. And that was such a thing. Yeah. And now
people don't, for the most, I mean, there are some
it's
groups,
right,
but for the most part, people have
but
gone beyond
if it
that.
didn't happen then, that it was so outrageous, then we wouldn't be here now. So the people, like, they serve a purpose in doing what they're doing. It's not the purpose that is opening minds. It's not. It's changing the world, certainly, because everything has an equal and opposite reaction. But it's not the reaction that they intend to go for. It tightens things on this end as much as it blows things up on this end.
Yeah, I suppose. I I don't know. I look at it like something like you did with your play. It just shows that people have been here and they're living here, and
Right.
I guess to me that's the way that you're going to change. You're going to affect real change in today's world, because I feel the majority of people really don't care what you do as long as you're not negatively affecting their life.
Well, and okay, so
The majority of people,
bring
there's
it back
still...
to the DNC.
Yes.
Clinton, we know what he got impeached for.
Yes.
Look at Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the history of Trump. That is a way different story. But because it was such a scandal.
Mm-hmm.
When it was such a scandal, right now, we don't care what you do in your personal life. Just
True.
don't
Things
bother me.
have changed, sure.
Things have changed because he had to go there. How did Monica Lewinsky had a TED Talk, and it was something like The Price of Shame is what it was called. And in the same way that the people dressing up as nuns and making out in front of the church are, we had to go to Madonna wearing a wedding dress on MTV and rolling around the stage very sexily in order to be at the point of now. We had to see Janet Jackson's nipple so that we could have a naked protest at the RNC.
Mm-hmm. Which was not done very well. Mike Sassa talked about that on his show. Apparently they did the protest before Trump was even there, and they did it in an area that wasn't really that visible.
Yeah.
So, not that I'm anti, against the protest. I'm just thinking
No.
that was Mike's point, was come on, if you're going to protest, at least,
Yeah.
at least do it when people are going to see you.
If you're going to commit. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm in. Totally.
So, yeah, but no, I mean, I see your point. Really a fantastic job, though. I really enjoyed it, and I'm interested to see what you have coming up next. I know you have a show here that you have coming up. It is Scratch.
Yes, Scratch stand up. It is hosted by Vincent Didiano.
Mm-hmm.
Cassie Bruno and I are opening, and Felicia Gillespie is the headliner.
Okay.
And fun story, so when I started comedy when I was 16, I used to sneak into the improv because I had braces, but I also had boobs. And so they would let me in. And I had such a crush on her because she was the only female comic. And she was so cool. And she had all of the one-liners. And she was just snarky.
Mm-hmm.
Just mean sometimes. And so I used to follow her around and go to TGI Fridays afterwards. And it's kind of cool that I get to open for her now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool. I had a similar experience where I had Tim Benz come on my radio program, and he's one of the bigger influences on me as a radio host. So I can relate for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely a very cool experience. And are you a little bit starstruck by the opportunity?
We've become friends way since then. But,
okay.
But just that, I'm cool enough now.
Yeah.
Because I was 16. But it's really interesting now. Like I think I'm losing starstruck, and part of that is
I never was very starstruck as a person. It's very rarely. I guess I've always had a bit of an ego, and I've always kind of felt, you should be lucky to be me. Who are you? You're just a regular person.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of had that mentality, even as a young person, to be honest. I had no problem, going up to somebody who was in an authority position and telling them what I thought or giving my suggestions and things like that. And that's probably, one of the ways that you're able to succeed in radio is because any kind of entertainment form, you have to be willing to put yourself out there and not be afraid of, what someone's going to say.
Exactly. Totally. And what's to kind of piggyback on that, so I was obsessed with John Cameron Mitchell and Hedwig and the Angry Inch 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was when it came out. 2001, I think, was the movie. And this year, I got to go to the Night of 1,000 Hedwigs and meet John Cameron Mitchell.
Oh, cool.
And what I kind of realized is if I got to be John Cameron Mitchell when I was 18, And I submitted to do the show to my directing class, but the response from the head of my department was, "We don't do children's shows." But if I had gotten that opportunity, I would have just been one of the 1,000 Hedwigs. Instead, I had to do a show about my brother and the grief of losing my brother. And so I became me. And so in the same way that you were just talking about your ego, like, I have the, oh no, I've done things.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a resume. Here you go.
Exactly.
I have opinions.
And I mean, I've had so much, and this has helped me in some ways. You know, I went into WCAL, and, you know, my very first time on radio ever, like, I knew what I was going to do. Someone said, well, you know, maybe you shouldn't know. This is how I'm going to do it. I had it laid out. I knew what I wanted to do, and I did it. And, you know, it was a very successful show. We had, you know, some good hosts for a college radio show, and, you know, it went off. And there was definitely a lot of jealousy that came from a few people in the station because of it, but, you know, that's just the way things go. So, but yeah, I mean, I there's a few people I've gotten starstruck with. I met Mike Lang once, who does the play-by-play for the Penguins, and he mentioned my name on the radio, and that was like one of the few times where I'm like, oh, he mentioned my name on the radio. He mentioned my name on the radio because it's Mike Lang, and very rarely would I, you know, get that way. Even, you know, like other huge names, you know, it's just like, well, you know, it's so and so.
In the same way that I was encouraged to be myself, I've been obsessed with Christopher Titus, who just goes out there and, like, started with this whole dysfunctional family thing, and I get it. Like, I was allowed to talk about that, and that was awesome. And I've been a fan for years. My fiance listened to his podcast and sent him a message about me, saying how wonderful I was, to Christopher Titus.
Oh, that's cool.
And he responded, oh yeah, that's real cool. I'll tell my wife that you're in love. That's awesome. Talk about, I fainted. I was so excited.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, and I think it means more when you're somebody who's not so easily starstruck, because so many people, you know, it's like they just fawn over everyone.
Right.
And it's just like, you know, like, don't you have any self-respect? Like, you're, you know, a person doing important things yourself, and...
Well, right, and that's exactly it, is we're all working people.
Yes.
Like, just people. At the end of the day, you still poop.
Exactly.
Unless you're Beyonce and you're on the lemonade diet.
Yes, then you don't poop.
No, no pooping. It doesn't happen that way.
But I think we're gonna move on, and I might go take a poop myself. We're about done, so it's
onward to victory.
About that time. This great cake from across the street. You know, they have, like you said, everything has a consequence. So.
Oh yeah.
Gotta go. Don't forget, this Friday, we've got Coffee and Conversation with Katie Dudas. And don't forget that if you like the show and you like the River's Edge Radio Network and you want to become part of the local music scene here in Pittsburgh, you can join us on Patreon. You can become our patron and become part of that local music scene. You can find the link at the bottom of every River's Edge page at riversedgepgh.com. So, Christine Marie.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll have to do that again sometime. It was fun.
Yeah, no, I love that. That was awesome.
Yeah, so I'm Brian Crawford, and don't forget, tomorrow you've got Funny Money and Awesome Cast here at riversedgepgh.com. Peace out.